Okay, so last week I did a live stream called Real World Alignment Tips and Tricks. And one of the questions came up, a really great question from Toast on Toast, was would it be helpful if the impulse response was windowed? And in that moment, I don't feel like I answered the question very well. And what was going on in my head was, oh, I think I remember a little bit about how data is captured in REW and SMART, but I couldn't remember exactly how the windowing works on the data capture side in Crosslight. And so after the live stream, I talked to a couple friends and I talked to Francisco, who is the creator of Crosslight, and he answered my question, and it's super simple. And so I want to make another attempt at answering this question of if windowing would help our situation here. Would it clean this up? Would it make this alignment possible with this really noisy data? So we're going to look at some options here today. This is where we left off last time, basically, or this is the original data. So the great thing about this data that I have here in Crosslight is that it was made with no windowing. And that means that when you're doing your acquisition here and you're capturing some data, you can select no window here. And that's how I capture almost all of my data, because I just want to move really quickly. I don't have to worry about where the reference or the delay locator is going to. So I just capture all of my data, and then I have some post-processing things that I do after that to make sure there are no mistakes in the original data acquisition step, right? In the capturing of the data. I just want to get all the data and then figure out what to do with it later. Okay. So that's just to show you here that all of this noisy data that you see has no window, except for the minimum window you would need just to perform the FFT calculation, right? Great. So we're capturing all of the reflections here in the room, which is all of this crazy stuff that you see. So can we utilize some windowing to help us here? So let's start with an easier case than the subwoofer. So let's mute the sub. Let's just take a look at the main, because part of the story here is that when we have plenty of high frequency data, it's easier for our reference to get a lock in the right place, and therefore any kind of noise reduction we do related to windowing is going to be better, easier. So let's start with something that's a little bit easier. So we open up the noise reduction window here and we choose windowing, and it snaps to this peak here, and that's good for us. So I'll zoom in here. Let's go really close in, 15 milliseconds. So you can see here, it snapped to a peak. There's a reflection here, but it didn't lock onto that reflection. And you can see that we can kind of see the outline of the window here, and it's reducing some noise. And now, if I wanted to, I could change some of these parameters, but let's just go ahead and accept this, and that just makes a duplicate here, and see if this got us anywhere. Now, to me, this looks pretty much the same. So here's where we were before, here's where we were now. So let's go ahead and delete this, because we can do a little bit better. So I'll erase this. And we'll go back to noise reduction, back to windowing, and then we'll go to manual. So now I can change some of these settings. So I can change the high pass filter here. That'll help clean things up. You saw that the window got dramatically shorter. So here, as I drag this high pass filter around, you can see that window changing sides, kind of giving us an indication of some of the results. And you can see in blue here, this blue, darker blue line, what's happening, what the results will look like, at least in the magnitude. Okay, so let's try that. Let's switch over to that one. Okay, that's a little bit cleaner, but still not great. But I'm gonna leave this like it is for now. And to give you an example of what I was hoping to get, take a look at this. And let's delay this guy back. Okay, so this green guy that I imported, this is my reference. Okay, this is another measurement that I've taken ahead of time so I could have something on the side of sanity to look at when I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my measurements, some kind of a target. So this is more of what I was hoping to get with my noise reduction here, but you can see that this is not really what I got yet. That's okay. All right, we will come back to this and see that we can make an even better improvement here. But let's go take a look at our sub and see what sort of challenges come up when we try to apply windowing to the sub. Okay, so here we are, we're looking at the phase. It just looks like a big mess. There's nothing helpful there that I can see. So let's go back to that noise reduction window. We will go to windowing, and what we learned last time, just playing around with our main, is that we need to adjust this high pass filter a little bit to make anything work for us. Okay, so I'll set this up here and we can see, big change happening. And with a band pass element like a subwoofer, then we could also make use of this low pass filter here. And there we go. So windowing does seem like it's cleaning something up, and we can see the impulse response here is much cleaner. So let's go ahead and apply this and see how we did. So this is our result. I don't really feel like this is any easier to read. Let's move the reference. Okay, maybe this is a little bit easier to read, but there's something strange going on here that if you had no reference, you would have no way to know. So what happened, as I was sort of moving quickly there, is that we just let our reference be set automatically by being set to the peak, and we locked onto a reflection. And so now we did all of our windowing and noise reduction based on a reflection. And so now here we are trying to look at this phase of a reflection coming in. And if we turn back on our main element here, then we might see, oh wow, we're really not aligned at all. We better add a bunch of delay here. Then you're going to push this guy way back over here, and then you're going to end up aligned to a reflection, right? Or a misalignment in my world. So let's see how this happened and see if there's anything better we can do using windowing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. Let's go back. So erase this. Okay, here's where we started. And we can see, oh, it put the reference here because it thinks this is the peak, but then we ended up, basically windowing around a reflection. So what can we do? Well, we can see obviously that the signal starts up here. So we know that the signal's up here somewhere. It's not way back here. But we can also import a reference and try to make some kind of a comparison. So I have this reference measurement of the same speaker, and I've lined it up already with our room measurement, and we can see that yes, in fact, the peak should actually be up here somewhere. This is the direct sound, and then way back here, these are all reflections. But maybe I took a step too soon, because those of you who are familiar with doing most of your work with real-time measurement systems, you're familiar with using a delay locator. I use these kind of systems for years as well. And if you are familiar with using a delay locator, using real-time measurement systems, then you know that when you're doing a main sub-alignment, then what you always do is you set the delay locator to your main speaker, and then when you go to measure your sub, you don't move it, right? So let's try that. So here I've got my reference set at 41 milliseconds. And now I can go ahead and mute this guy here. We'll go back over to our sub. And let's try doing our noise reduction again. But this time, when we do the windowing, we will put our reference in a different spot. So here you can see that it's trying to give us the reference at that reflection again. And we say, okay, we're smarter than this now. We know that it's somewhere else. So let's go to 41.354. I'm looking at this number down here where our reference was. Milliseconds. Oh, I have to go to manual first. 41.354. Okay, zoom out. There we go. Now we've got a reference in a different spot. Hopefully this is a smarter move. I'm going to apply our high pass and low pass filters again, and let's duplicate data. Okay, looks a lot cleaner. Is it clean enough now to do our alignment? So here's the kind of target I was looking for. They look a little bit more similar. They look like this, but still really hard to read, right? And if I had to try to do this alignment with this speaker, I don't know how far I would get. Maybe I would say, okay, I think these look the same, maybe it's okay. But I find this still really hard to read, especially when I'm in the field and I'm trying to move quickly and there's a bunch of other things going on. I really wish this were easier, right? So let's take a couple more steps and see if we can get even cleaner data. So I'll mute this again and we'll go back to our sub. Okay, so now we're back to where we started, and now I have a new idea for you. Let's use that reference that I brought in. Let's use that to figure out where we're going to actually center our windowing around. And so I'll go here and I'll find that reference, and it's at 48 milliseconds, something like that. And let's go back to our sub channel here. We'll get back into noise reduction, go back to windowing, and then windowing manual because we know that it's going to choose the wrong location for us. And then we'll put in our new reference, which is 48.4375 milliseconds. Okay, we'll do our high pass and low pass filters again. Okay. Is this going to be good enough? Okay, it's definitely getting better, right? But it still just looks like a million wraps. So instead of this turning into an hour-long video where I just try, recipes over and over and over again, I'll show you one way that you could get there, maybe. And then what I would do instead of all of this, right? Because I do think there's an easier way than playing with all this data. Now, if this data is all you have to go on, then this might be all you can do. And if you're just at home and you have plenty of time to play with this, then that's totally fine. And, it can be a lot of fun. So let's delete this and let's erase this and go back and try something a little bit different. Now, if you remember from the live stream, I showed you how you can use this noise reduction feature to actually remove reflections. You can actually remove some peaks. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to Veritime Transform. Now, Veritime Transform is not dissimilar to windowing. Veritime Transform, or VTT, is going to apply different sizes of window, and it does this whole noise reduction algorithm in a proprietary way. So there's some windowing in there, and there's some secret sauce from Francisco, from Crosslight in there, and you'll see in a second here that it's going to be superior to just windowing by itself. Okay, so I've selected Veritime Transform. You can see that it's selected the peak of the reflection here. So now we'll jump over to VTTR. The R is short for remove. So now we'll go ahead and apply. Well, let me zoom out here so you can see what happened. Okay, see, it selected this peak. Put that here. Let's actually move these. I don't know how important this is, but with each step we can clean it up a little bit more and more, right? There we go. We've removed one reflection. So I'm going to click apply and keep. And you're going to see that a second thing shows up here. This is the one I just processed. And so now I'm going to do the same thing again. Veritime transform. It's going to again select the wrong peak because you know we need to be at around 48 milliseconds and now we're at 84. And so now let's just remove this one again. So we'll go to VTTR. Here I can see that I'm a little bit closer to the right place here, to the beginning of the direct sound. So just to experiment, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And again, I'll adjust the high pass and low pass filters. At this point, I'm not sure if they'll be doing much. Okay, again, apply and keep. Now, hopefully this final time when I apply VTT, it will pick the correct peak, and it did not. It picked a reflection way far away, 200 milliseconds away, but that's okay. We know where it's supposed to go. It's supposed to go over here at around 48.4375. 48.4375 milliseconds. Okay, look at all the energy we're dumping out that came from all those reflections. Okay, apply and close. So now we can sort of see the progression here as we removed one reflection, removed another reflection, okay, and then finally applied our last bit of noise reduction. Okay, now here in the green, still pretty ugly, but so far, everything we've done today, this is the best result, at least as far as it is similar to our reference trace here. And now if we mute that reference for a second, we'll head back over to our main here, and let's actually apply VTT to our main speaker because we saw how nice that was when we applied it well to the sub. Okay, adjusting the high pass filter here. Apply and close. Switching over to that one. And there we go. Much cleaner, right? Still not the same as our reference, but we can kind of see here what's going on now. And if we had to do this alignment with this data, I would be a lot more confident now of taking some kind of action than I was before. And that's the whole point, right? Getting actionable data. So the question we started with was, would windowing help here? And I think the answer we got to is yes, but applied in a thoughtful way where you are putting the reference in the right place, you are adjusting the high pass and low pass filters, and the only way we were able to really do that was by importing a reference so we can see where the time, importing a reference trace so that we can see where the timing reference was supposed to go. And we probably would have still gotten pretty far by just using our main speaker as our reference. But you can see I've delayed the main here by 14 milliseconds. So without that reference trace that I had imported, we would be about 14 milliseconds off, and it was just a lot more accurate to have a reference trace so that we could set our timing reference and then do all of our noise reduction and windowing around that. Okay, so we finally got here, but this took a lot of work. This is never something I would do in the field, okay? Unless I just had plenty of time to just dick around and try a bunch of different things, because the first time I was preparing for this video and trying to figure this out, it took me an hour and a half just to get here so that I could walk you guys through it, Not something I would do in the field. What I do in the field is either relative absolute method, or I use my product, SubAligner, which uses the relative absolute method. These are the tools that I rely on when I have inactionable data or data that's I just can't figure out, either due to my own lack of experience or due to noise or things like that. And so my favorite thing to do in the field is to use one of those two methods, use one of those two tools, and then verify it with the audio analyzer. And that way, if I get this kind of noisy data, then if I have no idea what I'm doing, at least I can say, well, at least I did it with one tool. But ideally, I start with one tool and then I verify it with the other. And that's really the method that I like to use. So I hope that helped with your question about windowing Toast on Toast. And I hope that you also see that while it can be helpful, it does require quite a bit of care when you are in, these worst of conditions, which honestly for me is just another Tuesday, right? For people who are doing concert sound outdoors, with nice sound systems, maybe you don't run into this kind of problems. But if you are doing a lot of indoor spaces and especially, really crappy sounding hotel ballrooms like I am, then you run into this kind of stuff all the time. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. If you have any other questions or suggestions for me, please feel free to comment on this video, and I'll see you in the next one.